Today, we're going to get into a really core principle of business law. It's this shield that, on one hand, protects entrepreneurs, but on the other, well, it can sometimes be used to hide some serious wrongdoing. We are talking about lifting the corporate veil.
So, let's just kick things off with a scenario. Imagine this. A company owes you a ton of money, but then all of a sudden they say they're broke. But you know for a fact the owner is living large, driving fancy cars, the whole deal. It just feels wrong, right? So, here's the big question. Can you actually go after the owner's personal money? That's what we're going to unpack today.
Now, the quick and simple answer is usually no. And the reason for that is a legal idea called the corporate veil. The best way to think about it is like an invisible shield. You see, the law views a company as its own separate legal person, totally distinct from its owners. So the company's debts, they belong to the company. The owner's personal stuff, their house, their car, their savings, is walled off and safe. And believe me, this isn't some minor detail, it's a huge deal in the business world.
Yeah, this isn't just some little legal technicality. This idea is pretty much the bedrock of modern business law. I mean, think about it. Without this protection, who in their right mind would risk starting a company? The whole concept encourages people to invest and innovate. But where did this incredibly powerful idea even come from?
Well, it all goes back to this landmark case from way back in 1897, Salomon versus Salomon & Co. So you had this guy, Mr. Salomon, who sold his successful leather business to a brand new company that he himself created. He and his family were the only shareholders. Well, eventually the company went bust, and the creditors tried to go after Mr. Salomon personally, arguing that the company was just a front, a total sham.
But in a decision that changed everything, the highest court said, nope. And the way they put it was so clear. They said the company is, and I'm quoting here, a different person altogether. It doesn't matter if the same person owns it and runs it. In the eyes of the law, they are two separate entities. And with that one ruling, the corporate veil was basically locked into place for good.
Okay, so the shield is strong, really strong, but it's not invincible. There are certain situations where the law itself basically says, hang on a second, we need to peek behind that veil. These are what we call statutory exceptions, where actual laws have been written to hold directors personally responsible.
And these exceptions are pretty straightforward. For instance, if a director knows the company is going under, but just keeps racking up more debt without any hope of paying it back, that's wrongful trading, and boom, they can be on the hook personally. Same goes for outright fraud, or for acting as a director when you've been legally banned, or for trying that classic trick of shutting one company down to dodge debts and then immediately starting a new one with almost the same name. That's the old Phoenix Company maneuver.
But what happens when someone isn't breaking one of those specific laws, but they're obviously just using the company structure to get away with something they shouldn't be doing? Well, that's where the courts have come up with their own tool. It's called the mere facade test, for when a company is pretty much just a mask. This case is the perfect example. So there was this guy, a Mr. Horn, who had a contract that legally prevented him from poaching customers from his old employer. So what does he do? He sets up a new company in his wife's name and starts doing exactly that. He thought he was being clever, right? But the court saw right through it. They said, no, this isn't a real business. It's a sham, a mask he's using to break his promise. And they shut it down.
And this quote from another similar case just hits the nail on the head. The court called the company a device and a sham, a mask which he holds before his face. That's the core idea right there. Is the company just being used as a disguise to hide from a legal responsibility you already have? That's the question the courts are asking. So does this mean courts are just lifting the veil all the time whenever something seems a little fishy? No, not at all. In fact, today, the approach is extremely cautious. Courts are very reluctant to do it because they still see that original principle from Salomon versus Salomon as absolutely sacred.
This quote right here is everything for understanding the modern view. It comes from a huge case, Adams versus Cape Industries, and it makes it crystal clear. A court can't just set aside this principle merely because it considers that justice so requires. In other words, just feeling like a situation is unfair isn't enough. You need a lot more than that.
So what's the test today? Well, you can kind of break it down like this. First, it's not enough that someone just controls the company. Second, you have to prove there was some real, actual misconduct, not just a vague feeling that something's unfair. And here's the kicker. You have to show that the company structure itself was being used as the weapon, as the tool to commit that misconduct. All of those pieces have to be there.
So, we've jumped from the 1890s all the way to modern courtrooms. Let's wrap this all up. What's the bottom line here? The bottom line is this: that corporate shield is one of the strongest, most respected principles in the entire legal world. It's what allows people to take risks and build businesses. And courts will only step in and pierce that veil in very rare cases. Basically, only when they are totally convinced the company isn't a real business at all, but is being used as a deliberate weapon for fraud or to duck a legal duty that someone already had.
And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. This corporate shield is obviously essential for our economy, but where's that perfect balance? Is it a crucial protection that fuels innovation and lets people take chances? Or can it sometimes become a license for people to hide behind a corporate mask and just get away with things? Something to think about.